Ray is not able to attend tonight, and the only person I'm not sure on is Kelly. So it's about 5 after. We could just get started, and then we'll see what happens. She might be having a little bit of a technology issue. I'm not sure. Welcome everyone. It's good to see you all again. Tonight we have our survey in, so I thought it might be good just to talk about a brief overview of what the findings were, what came in from the community, and just kind of key takeaways, because there's areas in our document or our plan where we have to include like the survey results, just, you know, the main gist of the survey. In some cases, when you read through it, you'll see from people's written comments, I guess, or typed in comments, some of their input is a repeat of things that we already identified as a group. And then there were some new things, and a lot of the new things, a good amount of them, I thought, were almost like items that maybe Chief Bush, you know, might find helpful for like just ideas to pass along to his officers. We'll go through and I'll kind of point a few of those out. Like, I'm not sure that some of them seem very specific to individuals, and it might not be necessary that they are key issues, but it might be just something the community mentions. You know, some of it has to do with like parking and, you know, things that are bigger issues, not necessarily specific to what we're working on here, but so we'll see it when we pull the document up, but I just wanted to mention that. And I guess as we go, go ahead, Lori. Yeah.
I was just going to say the parking issue is an interesting one. I feel like there's some nuances there. I don't know if this is the right platform for it, but yeah, it is interesting. And I feel people's frustration, and I don't know that this is the right avenue for parking.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing to remember is because this survey will be attached to our plan, the public can see all of everyone's feedback. So they're getting a good sense of what people want to talk about, what they want to say, and in their input. But it might be something that's more like, I don't even know, like a village board meeting item.
You know, I think you're absolutely right. And I would say if that is, I did see a lot of things about parking. And for me, I was like, wow, if that is the biggest complaint, we're in a good place. Like as a village, like if parking is what we're concerned about, in some ways, it's not an easy fix. But I feel like if that is the biggest complaint about our policing, like that's a thing for you, Dave Bush. Like if this is the biggest concern, and there were a lot of comments about parking, and I felt like that it's valid. I don't want to invalidate that, but I also feel like if that's the biggest concern, that's okay. That's something the village can address in lots of different ways. That is not necessarily a police monitor it, but it's not necessarily a police issue.
Yeah, responsibility necessarily. Yeah, unless it's something more specific to policing. I felt like, I mean, just to say in general, two things. And I think I said this in an earlier email, but Dave Wilmer pulled out any non-residents. So it's all, I mean, they had to self-identify as a resident. So that's all out of there. And then I thought the survey, I felt really good about the survey. I think it showed what our gut instincts were, what Chief Bush shared with us. The village in general, the community seems very pleased with our policing. And I think it's a really strong indicator of that. And I thought that was great. And there are things that obviously that reinforce areas of opportunity, but in general, I think Chief Bush and your group should feel very good about what you're doing for us as a community. So.
And I agree. I just want to chime in on that. I think it's a really great moment to say, yay, Chief Bush, right? Like, I'm serious. Like yes, that's a moment of, there were lots of opportunities to have other input. And I think, not to invalidate any of the input that came through, but I do feel like I think that's a good thing. And I think the Ballston Spa Police Department and Chief Bush should feel really good about the input that came in.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try to share my screen and I'm gonna hope I'm successful. Boy, let's see. I don't know if it's allowing me to here. Okay.
Larry, you might need to make her a co-host to share a screen.
I have an option to allow panelists to share their screens, and I checked it. But if that doesn't work, then I'll make her host. I don't care.
Yeah, for some reason, it's not showing like my whole desktop. When I go to share, it's just showing like a couple items that I don't know what they are entirely, but.
All right, well, I'll make only host can share, and then I'll make you the host.
Okay, I'll try. Let's see if it goes.
See if that works.
Okay. Oh, host disabled participant.
Yeah, I disabled it because I changed it to only host.
You know, for some reason, it's doing it to me too, but it could be something with my own. I know I've not had good luck.
Okay, now you're the host. So now you try sharing again.
Yeah, select a window. For some reason, it's literally like.
Do you want to send it to me? I can try
to share it.
Yeah, if you.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you. Well, actually, Lori, you know what? Oh, you know what? Did that? No, I think you would have it in your own email. So it's the Ballston, it's the survey. It's just called Ballston Spa Police PD survey. So you would have to go into email and just pull it up because it's the same. That would be the same thing I'd be sending if you have it. If you don't have it, I can try to email it to you. But I can talk about it until you find it for sure. Just hold on a second. All right, so I'll just, if it's okay, Lori, I'm just gonna start talking about it. And then if you have trouble finding it, I'll try to email it back again. Question one was really about, it's actually question one was like, are you a resident? So that's kind of like not necessary. Hold on 1 minute, I'm having a little tech issue here. I need to move this over a little. Okay. All right. Okay, so question two was, how safe do you consider yourself in Ballston Spa? And I'm pretty sure let me just double check that I didn't skip ahead. Yeah, that's question two. Okay. Very safe. It ended up being about like 75% of the population felt very safe. There was different questions like, how do you feel outside? How do you feel in your home? How do you feel at night? In general, I think I'm trying to this isn't like showing as accurately as I was.
There it is.
Oh, great. Did you put it up, Lori? Oh,
I think it's the first one.
Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, exactly to the left. Yeah.
Am I sharing the right? Like I have all kinds of things open. Am I sharing the right thing?
Yeah, it would be that
email.
All right. Is this it?
No, that's that's each person. So it's the other one, the other attachment.
Let me get there.
First attachment.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. That's so weird that it's got to be my laptop. The reason you can share and I can't. But.
Wow. Is that right?
There we go. Good.
That's great. Thank you. So we're going to go down to question two, if you don't mind, Lori.
Question two. You just have to dictate what you need me to do.
Okay. So it's kind of cutting off some of this, but it was basically like, how do you feel at night? How do you feel outside during the day and in the community and all of that. So very safe is the yellow, the golden bar. And I think on the whole, I don't remember exactly which one it was where, actually, can you scroll down a little bit further? It might indicate more. Yes, okay. So how safe do you feel at night in your home, walking at night in the village, alone walking in your neighborhood, and then during the day? So I felt like people felt very safe in general. Obviously, during the day is probably the best. And then walking at night alone in town, it was probably where they felt less safe, I guess. So we had a good.
Honestly, when you look at the totals, like
yes.
these are great numbers.
Yeah. 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 Well, the total though, remember, is I think respondents. So not safe, safe, very safe. And the percentages, I think, are their impression of how they felt. And then underneath, I think, is the number of people that respond. Does that make sense, I guess?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're right. I just, house safe and home. Yeah. I do feel like the percentages are they equal out to what I feel. That's not neither here nor there, but I'm just saying, I feel like this was a pretty adequate response.
Yeah, it seemed very solid to me. So question number 3 was the level of trust in the police department. And if you go down a little bit further, Lori, and if we add the responses from a great deal, a lot, even from moderate up to a great deal, it's substantial. You know, it's like only 4% or less felt that they didn't feel, you know, so that's like very minute. So that, I thought that was strong. Question 4, in a situation where you required help or assistance from the police department, what extent do you feel the responding officer would treat you with respect and professionalism? Again, this was like huge. This was all like really super high, somewhat professional up to very and extremely, you know, it was only 1% that fought not professional or not so professional or not professional at all. It was almost non-existent. So that's super strong. Rate your level of confidence in the police department if they would provide assistance needed upon a 911 call. Everything was above somewhat confident. It was, you know, pretty much the entire group. There was no one that didn't feel confident in that that answer to that call. So I thought that was excellent also. In your experience, or do you have any reason to believe that the police department would benefit from additional officers? This was interesting, you know, it's half and half. And I think some of this might be like just maybe not an understanding entirely of the makeup of the staff or the officers, and that a lot of them are part-time. And I think when they read the whole plan, Susanna did a really nice job in the beginning of pulling the information that Chief Bush had given us in one of the first couple of meetings in the first page of the plan, and just really identifying like the makeup of our police department and some really specific details, which I think are great at giving the community a sense of what it looks like.
And I do think that when you look at the actual comments, there were a lot of comments that said more police are better presence. People don't want to do crime if there's more. So I don't know that they thought we needed more police because there was a need for more, but because they thought it's always better to have more. That to me, that comment didn't mean that they didn't feel safe or that they didn't feel like we had adequate amount. They just thought it's always better to have more.
Right.
Yeah, some of them even went so far as to say, you know, it would take some strain off of the current police department. And then at least a few, I think, did understand the makeup or know that we have a lot of part-time folks, because they were saying it would be better to have more full-time.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
It would also be interesting to know, like, we can't do this now, but in my mind, when I read through all of this data, I was like, so if we had one more full-time, would that mean that we didn't need all the part-time? Like there's people have certain indicators on what they think, like if we had another full-time, what that actually means across the board. And I don't know that we didn't have any question that actually dealt with that, but I do agree that people thought we had a lot of part-time. I think they were really aware of that. And they thought if we had another full-time person, somehow that would change that. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I think that speaks to this actual question.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I think that people forget is if like say Chief Bush or the group decided to add a full-time person and they had to remove 2 part-time people to do that, you're also not considering that full-time person would need benefits. So there's like a lot, you know, that would be a decision that might be good going forward if that decision was made for the development of the department in some way or a benefit to the department, but it would include benefits. So that's like another expense, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuances there.
Yeah. Okay, can we go down to the next one, Lori? So this allows people to, to type in their response. Sorry, can you just go up to the question one more, or to the, just above it a little bit? Okay, so there's a lot of input here about adding extra. I don't know, does anybody have anything they want to pull out from here or that they want to point out, I guess?
Well, I think this was more individual this was more of the quantitative, is that what it's called? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, but I think when you look through it, the majority of them, well, that's okay. We can look through those, but I don't know that there's anything here. There weren't any major themes, from my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we are going to be including some of the graphs, I mean, we need to get a sense for where we're headed with this, but we'll have some of the graphs. I don't think we would need this level of detail in our report, but we could have like 3 statements that summarize, the bulk of the comments, and it would help to explain why 50% yes, why 50% no. Well, basically, a lot of people just think more is better. You could have that as to help people understand.
I think you're absolutely, I think more is better. I think traffic control was a comment. Yeah. I think there's been a couple like themes that came up, but nothing that was alarming to me personally, that when I looked through it. But I think in the report, we could pull out some of the themes and then add a quote to the theme.
Yeah. I know in some of the other plans that I've seen that it looks to be how they did it also. And then if anyone wants to read through these, they're able to do it because this is attached at the end of the plan altogether.
Right.
Because there was one group and it's almost like they built all this stuff into the entire plan. And it actually was really hard to read it. And you got really tired of it right away because you just felt like you were so overwhelmed. So I actually think if we could put bullet statements, include the graphs, they get the sense of from the graphs, and then just a couple of commonalities, right, or important points.
Mm-hmm. We could even just like have call outs next to the graphs. So, just to kind of consolidate a little bit and make it look a little tidier. Yeah,
that's good. Lori, can we go down to the next one? So number 7, in your experience, do you have any reason to believe the Ballston Spa, that Ballston Spa would benefit from additional training for the police officers? So this was interesting because, it was only like a little, like maybe, I don't know, 18% more that said yes. I'm not sure everyone understands the importance of that or what's needed. So that might be why this came out this way. And then we can go to look at the comments.
I think when you look in the comments, I think they're benefit from training. I feel like there's this overwhelming, like, yeah, everyone can benefit from training. That's true. And then they're like, what kind of training? And then they talk about it, but it doesn't mean that there's a need necessarily for I think that the themes that were across were special needs, mental health, like they were, but I think that's true across the country. I think some of this response wasn't necessarily to Ballston Spa per se, but across the board, like everybody could use training in these areas. That was my take on it, but that's just me.
I mean, I think the one great thing that it was one of our suggestions. Mental health seems like a big one that keeps coming out. And the fact that the Ballston Spa Police are going to benefit from the Sheriff's Department ongoing training, I think addresses probably all of this.
I saw crisis intervention, like there were key ones that stood out, but a lot of them were around mental health and around special needs and around like the ways in which, well, diversity, but a lot of these were politically things that are happening around the nation. And so they may be seeing that in terms of all police need these trainings. And that's sort of how I read some of this. It wasn't necessarily a reflection on per se Ballston Spa.
I think that might be true, but this is sort of my broken record. I don't think we should ignore it. And I think we should make sure that we are thinking proactively about important situations that will inevitably arise here in our little town too.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think these are, whether it's reached us or not, I think there are definitely things that it would be great to be proactive around. Mm-hmm. That's going to be coming across. And I think also, like, if I were filling this form out as not part of this, I'd be, of course, training's always more helpful. Like, more education's always great. Like, I think that there's a certain like demographic of people that would think that too, that we could always benefit from that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is quite a long list. A lot of it we address in the plan, de-escalation, mental health, training that we already identified in that area, like our language that we put in the plan about what we support and value addresses diversity. That's not necessarily training, but it does touch on that because there are changes that will be made to some of the processes that are sensitive to that.
I think that's exactly right. I just want to reiterate that I don't think that's a reflection on what our police department isn't doing. I think it's on a reflection on what is happening worldwide, like in our nation and worldwide, and how I think our residents really want our police department to be proactive and have those trainings so that when the things when those moments occur, we're prepared and we're not going to be reactive as opposed to proactive.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Let's learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, right. Okay. I think that's good. It's good. And then when we actually word this in the plan, we might need to put, something around that a little bit.
Because it doesn't sound like to me that there's been too many experiences that have been like, yeah, the police department needs this because this happened. It sounds like, yeah, we need this because it's coming. And I think that there's some truth to what happens externally. Like, even when we look at this, this plan, and I know some folks have said, well, we're not Schenectady, we're not Albany, we're not New York City. I think that some of that is, you're right, we're not yet, but I think that there's a trickle effect. And I think it'd be really great that we could be proactive in this so that we're not caught off guard feeling like we have to do things after the fact. This would be great to have all of this in place before it happens.
Yeah, I think even just the mission statement, the some of the updates to hiring practices, what we support as a public safety committee. A lot of things that are put in the document were things we all discussed, like, I think in a very good way, to anticipate issues, but to say that we're supportive of being aware and proactive on a national, in line with the national concerns. Okay, so is the Ballston Spa Police Force is charged with enforcement of existing laws where we live? What's your opinion on the effectiveness with which they enforce those laws on an everyday basis? And give some firsthand examples, or please cite them. So this was interesting. I mean, in some ways, it was a lot of interesting stuff, I thought, because people would talk about their own, like a paragraph full of information about their own experiences. Yeah, like, I'm not sure what to make of some of the parking things, like getting a parking ticket, like that kind of thing.
Clearly, parking is an issue in the village.
Yeah.
But I don't mean to make light of that, but it's interesting to me because I do feel like we should look at that. I know it doesn't seem to be like a priority in a lot of ways, but I also recognize that you're right. There's throughout this entire survey, parking was an issue. So I feel like I don't want to make light of that. Clearly parking may be a priority for a lot of people. And so I don't necessarily know the solution to it, but I do think we should look at parking in the village.
So we
had a parking,
go ahead.
A village-wide parking committee a couple of years ago that did look at the parking situation in the village. And I don't have a copy of their report fresh in mind or handy at hand, but I think a lot of it is that people can't park right immediately on the curb in front of the place they want to go to. I don't think it's that we don't have enough parking in the village. I think it's that people don't want to walk and they don't expect to have to walk. So the board is very aware of this issue and has discussed it at great length. And I took the initiative and went and contacted Saratoga County and EOC and got permission from both of them to use their lots for public lots after 5 o'clock in the afternoon and on weekends. So anybody who wants to eat on Front Street can park in the parking lot in front of the solar building, and that's a block away. So
that's really good to know. I didn't know that actually. I was unaware.
Yeah, EOC changed its signs, and the county changed its signs to say Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before I convinced them to make it all week.
Well, that's actually really helpful. I did read a few that were about employees who, and I don't know what the solution is to that, but I feel like there were a couple about people that work in the village that couldn't park, like that didn't feel like they could park without moving their car. But again, I also, not to undermine this, I also felt like if the biggest complaint was around the parking in the village, we're in a good place. Like that's a good problem to have given the national whatever that's going on in our world.
Yeah. The business owners don't want their employees parking on the street in front of their businesses. And all of those Front Street parking spaces are 2 hours max, precisely because the business owners want people to be able to come in, park in front of their business, go in and shop or eat or whatever, and leave again and open up that spot for somebody else. They don't want their employees clogging the whole street with parking.
I also think the other big theme I saw was about enforcement on, and I have a bias here, enforcement on speed and like turning. But when I lived on Chapman Street, like I will say that, you know, speed and stop sign running and people trying to get around going through main Ballston spot through the lights was actually, but I think that in turn, the village just put up stop sign. They put up a couple other things that have been that have tried to effectively meet those needs. But I did see that as a continued criteria, like people in the village, people that aren't necessarily residents of the village who are bypassing through the village, I seem to have some, which I can understand, trying to just get through it. But that was the other thing I saw, is there's some stuff about speed and traffic and not turning, like not stopping, turning, whatever. Those were the two main.
We hear from Hyde Boulevard constantly that they want a police officer on Hyde Boulevard to catch all the speeders and to stop the trucks from cutting through. But we only have 2 officers on duty when we got a 1.6 square mile village. So we can't really park one of those 2 officers on one street.
I'm absolutely not disagreeing. I'm just saying that was the theme I saw. And I don't know an answer. I recognize that I would say I have seen it be a problem. And if that's our biggest problem, I don't necessarily see it as a huge problem, not to undermine the fact that it is a problem.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's been a lot of improved signage over near like Malta Avenue School with this additional stop signs. I know there's some complaints about Hyde Boulevard with, you know, different stores that have come in and trucks taking that route, but I've seen some of them get pulled over, not frequently, but I mean, I don't live on Hyde Boulevard, so I can't objectively say what goes on there all day long, but I think there's some of this, just also to remember, this will go to the village board. And so they'll read through it. My hope is that they'll read through this and they're going to find things that are maybe more direct to their work, or if there's the parking committee or, you know, something of that nature. So I don't think we should dismiss it, but it might be more about like safety. And we might even indicate that something to the effect that this is also a document that can inform, you know, the village board or the other committees that work on parking and safety. I don't know.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think that some of this does not, like the things I read don't fall solely on the police department. I think this is a community thing. And I guess that's, you articulated that much better than I did. I do feel like that we do have some challenges being in a village with some stuff, but it's also not solely on the police department. And I was really grateful that if that's what we were getting for what people thought was the job of the police department solely, this was not a bad place to be. Like, we landed in a good place, I felt like.
Yeah, definitely. Here's a question. So here's a comment up here that said specifically, and I'm wondering what to do with it. So it says graded speeding violations. I think we need to be more proactive with rising drug crimes. I think I've seen drug activity in the park by the creek. So this may be true, right? I kind of read this and think this is good that someone says this, right? It comes forward with this in their input for the survey. It informs, you know, the police department because they're reading this. So you know, it's there now. As a committee, I guess I wonder, like, where would this type of comment fit in, or is it more just to inform? Like, would this be something kind of like, I think it was Joe that said maybe we should have some kind of a survey, like periodically, you know, for input. What do people make of this type of a comment? Is this something that we just understand as we read it, that it's something to be aware of, or does it have to go somewhere, I guess, within our plan, or is it just important that it's noted?
Well, I would actually, so not to put Chief Bush on the spot, I would like, I know we have cameras there. I know I participated in the building of the park. I don't know an answer there. I assume the police department is monitoring things, and I'm not sure. I don't want to speak out of turn there. So I feel like I think there's some things that perhaps the police department's doing that we aren't necessarily aware of. I would like to assume that.
I don't know if the chief wants to comment, but I think the police have a pretty good handle on the drug situation in the village currently.
Can I say something?
Yep.
Hold on. Can I say something here?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Was that only one person that made that remark?
Yes.
About the drugs?
And they said, I think I have seen, yep.
I think there were only a few comments about drug activity in the village. There were very many.
I wouldn't put too much stock into it, you know, and I wouldn't even discuss it if it was only like one or two people that mentioned something like that. First of all, if they did see it, why didn't they report it to the police department?
Right. True. Yeah.
I was going to suggest
You know?
that we add in our report, if you see something, please report it to the police. Call this
Exactly.
number. Because this is not the venue for us to be taking these kinds of tips or whatever they are, comments.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
But
agree
we
with you
should,
100%.
we want to increase well, I don't know if Chief Bush wants to, but we want to get the community more involved and invested. So, we want to encourage them to speak up if they think that there's something that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
So I would say in our report, perhaps we enlighten the community on the ways in which they can do that.
Exactly.
And maybe not everyone knows that. I know when I like if I see something going on, I call the police and I say, this is what's going on. It may not be that intuitive for everyone else. So maybe in the report we say that maybe it's as simple as saying the police welcome community outreach when they witness something they think is happening.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not Chief Bush. Please feel free to say anything if you need to, like, to interrupt us. But I believe in the beginning that Chief Bush shared with us that this is an issue in the village. Like there's there's drug related issues in the village, and mental health issues and all that. So that's all been put into our feedback and in our minutes and all that. These are probably just people identifying some of these instances, but it's not something that wasn't talked about or identified in the beginning.
And it's not something that's outside of what's happening across America. So it's not like this is unique to Ballston Spa. I think it might be minimal to Ballston Spa. That's just a...
Yeah, this person is absolutely correct when they say they've probably seen something and there's drug activity in the village, because there is. Last week we had 3 overdoses. 2 of those folks lost their life.
Oh my God.
Right here in the village. So we have a problem. We are working on the problem. And this is not meant to be an excuse, but I think a lot of times what we have is a failure of people to really understand what it takes for law enforcement to make an arrest on a drug case in Saratoga County. The district attorney makes it very, very, very difficult. And I'm not blaming them. They want convictions. I get it. But it's not like we can just receive a call for somebody selling drugs, walk up and pull the people out of their car and search their car. We can't do that. We're going to be the next ones on the news and having police reform committees about us. So
Too late.
Drug work is very, very, very detailed, very excruciating. And, myself and my officers, we don't want to continue to go to these drug overdose deaths. I mean, they're just tearing families apart, and it's horrible. And so that being said, we do have a handle on a lot of the major stuff that's going on in the village. We are working on it currently. There was some very good work done this past 10 days on a dealer right here in the village that we will be taking down very shortly with the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department CERT team. So we're doing it. It's just we're overwhelmed, and so is everybody that works narcotics.
I think too, I mean, maybe you can confirm this or not, Chief Bush, but even I think with the pandemic too, it's especially intense. But it may have been even before that, but.
Yeah, we have, I don't know if anybody's caught this on the news, there's been a rash of overdose deaths in the Capital District. We've had quite a few in Saratoga County as a result of impurities being mixed with cocaine and heroin. And as long as you have somebody out there that's trying to make a bigger profit, we're going to have these problems.
Okay. Thank you.
I would just add how appreciative I am. I recognize that in Saratoga County, it exceeds Ballston Spa, but I also think there's a lot that goes into protecting folks that are in that realm of addiction. And I think I actually believe that you guys do a really nice job of balancing conviction with addiction. So that's my 2 cents there. Sorry. I do recognize that I think Ballston Spa Police Department really tries to balance a lot of things between conviction and recognizing that people are having a lot of struggles.
Right. And one of the things, and you made a good point there, is the fact that small agencies like ours, we do everything. We handle the death investigations. We handle the felony cases. If we have a bank robbery, we're handling a bank robbery. We do the domestics, and we do the fender benders. So if it comes in as a call, we handle it. We don't pass it off to investigators. We don't pass it off to an accident team. Our guys do everything.
And if you're a person that lives in the village that is experiencing that, I think it makes a lot of sense because you have personal connections to the folks here. And I don't doubt that is a good connection that happens, that we don't have outsiders coming in to do all these. And like I do in my own personal experience, I think that the sensitivity that Ballston Spa Police do when we're dealing with the village incidents are actually really great. So I want to acknowledge that. I also think there's things there are challenges, but I do think that I am much happier having a Ballston Spa Police Department. There are a village of friends, right? Like our whole thing to deal with those, because I think that it gets handled differently.
Okay, I think this is good. I think we all feel similarly. Just trying to see, I think this goes quite a bit. There's quite a long list here. I'm not sure that a lot of it was similar. Question 9, in regards to the local laws and ordinances of Ballston Spa that do not make sense to you, how do you participate in affecting changes to those policies? So it seems like in general, people bring them up at the village board meeting. They may not have enough really knowledge of local laws and ordinances, or they don't participate. They may not know how to do that. I think if they read the report, if they take interest in reading the report after, it will help inform them of where they can go or how they can participate. I think that's this, yeah, these are all really similar. Does anybody have anything on that they would like to point out or that I may have overlooked?
No, I don't think people generally have a full handle on what what we were asking, what the laws are to be able to assess. So
yeah,
it didn't seem like there were any issues there though.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing I saw was stuff about zoning, but I think that's more village, not police.
Yeah. And again, I think if the village reads through this and they see a bunch of pings, on things like that, they could either add to the dialogue or, whatever they think is appropriate there. Question 10, in your opinion, is the Ballston Spa Police Force watchful of, and do they exhibit responsible care concerning our local laws, ordinances, as well as those of the county and state? I mean, this is like out of the park, yes. There's a couple, there's a few, no, but it's not even in the same realm. Question 11, do you feel having more officers dedicated to community policing roles would be worth the extra expense to the village's budget? These officers would be involved in roles such as foot or bicycle patrol during the day or early evening hours at special events in the village, working with the schools, resource officers, meeting with senior citizens groups, civic groups, assisting food pantries, church traffic issues, etc. So, I think this is kind of similar to like, do we need more officers? Like, I think people have a connection to some of those things that were on that list. And yes, like, so a lot of people do. And a lot of it to me seemed like they like the presence of the police as members of our community. They like to see them.
Agree. They like our police. That's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm. You know, engage with the schools, the civic groups, whatever it is, seeing them is a source of comfort and a source that they're part of our community. Well, I can't say that it's a source of comfort for all. I can't speak for all, but I think from this input, it sounds like it's preferable to have them be members of our community that we see, obviously, that we can get to know in our own way. Does anybody have anything about that particular group of those bits of input that they want to comment on? Okay. Question 12, in your opinion, does community policing help in crime reduction or building the public's confidence in the safety of living in our village? So again, it was like 90%. Okay. And then just some of these bits of input, you know, someone comments on patrol cars. They come through at night through the senior housing. You know, I think community policing, like we talked about this, I think it can get into the community also being well, it's kind of is, right? Being active in the policing effort, but, and the police themselves.
Yeah, we probably should have defined it better in this question.
I know. I don't think everyone understands entirely community policing. It's kind of creating probably a bunch of different groups that get involved.
Mm-hmm.
While police officers all receive extensive ongoing training throughout their careers in order to deal with a variety of difficult situations, in your opinion, should these same officers be offered adequate health and safety measures concerning coping strategies, stress management, and dealing with other mental health issues that may affect them? So this, again, was a really strong response that people agree, yes, they should be supported in that way. And I think that's something we identified and came up in people's input, and that we thankfully have the support of the Saratoga County Department that, you know, the ongoing training that our police will be able to participate in will address some of this.
I just wonder if this question was loaded in the way that said our police department needed it. I don't know that they do. We all assume they may, but I think that what this is saying is that they support our police department in the needs they have.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think so. That's a good point.
I don't know that we worded this. I think that
yeah,
in my opinion, it was like, if our police department is in need of these things, they absolutely support them to do that. It may not be the need of the police department, but what I got out of this was that if there is a need, we want to support that.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah, because in their wording of some of these written up in pieces of input, they say that, you know, they acknowledge the stressfulness of the job. What our officers see every day is enough to break strong people. It's our job to support them.
They deserve the benefits. Like when I looked through this, I don't know that I wish we could have articulated what our police department might need, because I think our folks would support it.
Yeah.
I don't know that we did that. And I wish that question would have been, I wish we had known what our police department recognized they wanted. And then I think we could have questioned it that way. But I think the support would have been there all around.
Well, I think the committee identified it in the beginning of some of our things that we felt were important for the police to support them educationally. Luckily, they're going to get a lot of that training now ongoing, which is great. And I don't think it hurts to have the community express these positive sentiments towards the well-being of the police. And I also think that this training that they support and also helps people that might be compromised or people that this national initiative is trying to support and lift up and help and have equity for too.
I wholeheartedly agree. I hope, Dave Bush, that you see. I hope you can share this with your officers so that they all see that we're really supportive of them getting the training or the help or the support they need to move forward.
I mean, this number 37, when it says police officers see the horrible side of everyday situations on a daily basis. They're human and need an outlet to release what they deal with. God bless them for picking up our messes. It's really.
So I feel like that is the majority of our village.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 14, do you have any suggestions for the Ballston Spa Police Department? I mean, special needs is something that's interesting because I don't know that we necessarily pointed that out. I don't know that, like, so, I mean, I don't know, Chief Bush, like in your experience, is that something that that your officers or yourself have had to deal with a lot, that has been kind of like a big issue, special needs kids or adults, or do you know of any kind of training that might occur for you going forward?
We're no different than any other community. We have, you know, our special needs citizens. We have several special needs homes in the village, and we do have to respond there quite often. The benefit there is that we also work with the staff that's
all right, yeah,
that's handling that. But there is a lot of the training incorporates everything. Like I'm not trying to say it's all in one, but it incorporates the mentally disturbed, the handicapped, the special needs, you know, the kids with autism, and so most of that conflict resolution or de-escalation, most of the curriculum does contain dealing with all those aspects. Okay,
like a broad training on whatever you might have to anticipate.
Right, because you know what, there is no one special way that works all the time.
Well, I think maybe that is a education point for our village. It doesn't mean that you guys aren't getting it. It means you're not aware that you have it. And so maybe that's just the thing where we have to share with the community that you guys are getting that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I think that one of the really, like, it's kind of funny because I mean, every community is different, but the one thing I think that's good about this plan and report is it does educate the community on all the aspects of what's going on that they don't know, in good, you know, in a good way. Even myself, we talked about this early on, like, it's a learning experience. It's really important. And I think it's going to be very good for the community if they take the time to read it. So, okay, I think, is that the last question, Lori? Oh, okay. So
just a question to that, to that end. Chief Bush, would it be appropriate to include a list of?
Oh.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Just wondering if it would be appropriate to include a list of planned training for the police officers that we could include, you know, as an education, right? I don't think we have anything specified right now. We kind of list things out generally, but it might be appropriate to say, you know, in the next year alone, police officers will undergo X, Y, and Z training as part of their ongoing support.
I think if you could make that, yeah.
I would rather say we plan on doing these things that, and instead of saying we are going to do these things. If it takes us, my reason for that, if it takes us, 13 months instead of 12 months in the year, unfortunately, sometimes we look too cynical at things, especially in this line of work. We're always going to have the people say, well, you said,
yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, maybe it's something like, we are going to know, and I'm not trying to say this over and over, but we are going to know that our police department is going to be receiving ongoing training in concert with the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department. It might get kind of, if we start literally listing every single group, or every single issue that they're going to be training at, like it might be, I don't know how to word it, but there's got to be some kind of good way to word it that's basically saying like they're going to be trained on a broad range of societal needs, or I don't even know how to word it, but
I feel like this is a trust thing where we have to say we are doing the things we need to do to be in the right place.
Yeah.
I think that's a building trust thing. Like, it doesn't mean that it happens in 12 months. It means that we're committed to getting this training in a reasonable time frame.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And I agree with Susanna that we need to let the folks know that, we are going to do these things. I hate putting we are going to do these things this time, this date, because.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that you don't have to put a time zone that like people can then come back and be like, you didn't do it by December 31st. Like, I feel like we're committed to these types of training in a reasonable time frame.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we could come up with some way of wording, the broad brush of that education, what it's, in general, how it serves, how it's, in line with modern policing or the needs of the community. We'll word it somehow that they get the idea, that it's covering a lot of bases.
I do think it's important to look at the demographic, like the age range. It's really interesting to me that the 60 and older are the largest percentage.
Well, the other thing is we had a set of paper surveys so we did a sampling of that age population. And I'm not sure if that, may have added additional input there. I mean, it did, but like, I don't know that it wasn't like we specifically targeted like, 30-year-olds or something. So I think we got a pretty good response from 60 and older online, but then we were concerned that some might not be represented. So the other thing I wanted to point out about this is Susanna had pulled out information from the Ballston Spa development plan, and that's going to be in our plan. So this is actually like who participated in the survey. So you're not always sure who's going to, right? It's not necessarily an indicator of who lives in the village or what our population is in general. So that information is going to be in the beginning of the plan. And this is just who participated in the survey.
I agree with that. I'm just saying that I feel like we hit a certain percentage of people, and perhaps in the future, we should try to target other folks that are in our village. And maybe that's not, I don't know what the demographics of our village is. Maybe the majority of our village is 60 and older plus. I just am wondering, I would like to hear responses from folks that are in other areas, but I don't know that we actually hit that.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible too, that an 18-year-old might not go on and look at the village website, or, I mean, they either are interested in these types of things or maybe not at that age. I don't know, you know, it could be some of that too.
We should put it on TikTok.
I was going to say, I do think that we have a lot of 18, 20-year-olds plus that are actually in our village that just aren't on this. I don't know what to call it, the agenda, but it doesn't mean they don't live here. It just means that they're not participating. And I wonder why. And I think they have a lot to say.
Yeah, it's possible. You know what? I'd have to look at the graphic. I don't have it in front of me, but we'll have to kind of. I think the information or the graphics from the Ballston Spa Community Plan might have addressed like kind of who lives in our village. This might be more of how that we just didn't hit that age group well, or that they just
that they're living in families that are in the other demographics and that they didn't.
Yes, true. The parents answered the survey.
Yeah, and they were like, I'm like, what do you call dependent on these other people, so they didn't respond. Doesn't mean I don't know. It just makes me curious. It's not something that I feel like we need to address here. It's an interesting curiosity for me. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think, is there one below this, Lori, or is that the last one? I can't remember. Okay. Yeah. How many children under 18 live in your household? So
again, this might be the same thing. Like, so when we didn't see the 18 plus, like the 18, 20-year-olds, perhaps that's because they're not the ones that are in the households.
Yeah, it's interesting. Luckily, we did get a broad capture. But again, I believe also there's information about like a lot of household specific information from that community plan graphic set. Like Susanna pulled kind of like a larger image of a variety of interesting bits of information about who lives in the village. And then
I also found it really interesting that female responded way more than male.
Right.
That was interesting. Yeah.
I don't know what that says. I'm not like, there's no, it's just my crazy curiosity. I'm like, more females responded. Interesting.
Well, it could be that more females, I don't know this at all, but use social media or Facebook or check into the village, site or the police site, or I'm not sure.
Or live at Doubleday Woods, I'm guessing.
Maybe, I don't know. I have no preconceived notions of this. I just find it really interesting. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, then, do you own or rent the place? Like, this is also, we asked this in the survey, but it's also brought forth in the graphics from the community plan. So it's almost just like in addition. So that's the end of.
That's it. Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Lori. So just I don't know if I said this in the beginning, and I apologize. I think I did, but I don't know 100%. So the village board is going to have a public comment meeting on the 23rd of March. So Larry had asked me, when do you think we can get this put together? And I said, maybe by March, 12th, to the board by the 12th or the 15th of March, around that time, a draft of it. Like throughout the process, various people have contributed things which are really helpful, like either editing, just speaking. Joe was kind enough to distribute the paper surveys to the folks at Doubleday Woods and retrieve those. Susanna did a bit of editing and, writing more content for the plan. Lori's been really helpful with lots of different viewpoints and offered different things. I think the plan looks good, and we just need to pull some graphics and just findings out of the survey to kind of implant in the plan, throughout the plan. So I don't know what everyone's time constraints are right now. Susanna emailed me recently and said she would be willing to get on Zoom and kind of go through it again and pull stuff out and just kind of round it out And I don't see any reason why we couldn't get it done by March 12th, and I'm happy to work on it with her. Lori, I don't know how heavy your time constraints are now. I know there's a lot of stuff going on now.
There's a lot going on at Skidmore, but I also really, I was, I, you know what, I was actually taken aback. I love being in the village. I came to this with like, we need to address a lot of things. It doesn't mean that it is a problem in our village, but I also felt like we need to actually do the work. I am more than happy to put in the effort to do this. I was pleased by the outcome from the survey. I hope it was a good sample, but I also think that there's a lot we can offer the police department. I think they do a really nice job. I would hate to see that go away. And yeah, so whatever you need me to do, I will make the time to do it. I appreciate everything that they have done. I doesn't mean it's perfect, but I think that in looking at everything, the challenges we have are so small compared to national issues that I really love being in the village. That's why I came back to the village. So anything you need from me, I'm happy to participate. I will make the time to do it.
Okay, so and I want to offer to everyone else, like Joe, and Ray's not on tonight, but you know, I'll send an additional email out, just a reminder to anyone else that has interest in like editing or working on the document. Like, by all means, if you feel comfortable and that your input is significant to the point that that was what you wanted to contribute at this point, and you just want the 3 volunteers that volunteered to, you know, up at to this point to work on it more, we can pull it together. We're obviously going to throw it back out to our group for more. Anybody sees anything blaring or they want to change something, then it would go to Larry to give to the village board. It would go out for public comment by the 23rd of March, and then it would be available to be submitted to the director of the budget but before that April deadline. So I'll send an email follow-up out, because you know, Kelly's not here too, and I don't want anyone to feel excluded in this middle to the end process. So whatever you're comfortable doing at this point is great. I think it's really far along, and I don't want you to feel the pressure of having to do more if you're comfortable with where you're at now.
I just want to say, Lori, I think you've done an amazing job of navigating this. I think that's been amazing. I also think that in all the ways that we have critically looked at the Ballston Spa Police Department, when we find what the initial concerns are, I think they are, not to invalidate them. Like, I think there's things we could work on, but I also think that there's a lot that has done right. And I think when you look at critical things, you don't always look at the things that have done right. And so I want to make sure that we follow through in ways that we can support them in doing the things they're already doing and the things they're doing really right, and acknowledge that, and also acknowledge that just because there's room for improvement doesn't mean that we're not above and beyond. And when I say we, like, I mean our Ballston Spa Police, our village. I think we've done a lot of things really great, and I think it's great to do the work, but it's also validating in a lot of ways. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm sorry. And now I feel really, I really am proud to be part of this. This is why I'm in the village and want to participate in these ways.
You know what? I think that's an important point, because recently this week at work, we were talking about that topic. There's so much negativity out there, and it's not that it doesn't exist, because it does, and there's realities that we have to look at really closely, but sometimes it's just as important to actually showcase, not even showcase is a bad word, but
acknowledge. It's an acknowledge.
Yeah, acknowledge what is really good. Yeah, exactly. And what's going well, and how people are doing their work that sometimes is not even appreciated on to the degree that it needs to be. And so That I think that the report, the way we wrote it, like people's input, comments that Joe and Ray had made, anybody that made live comments to the minutes we included. I think there's a diverse group here, all ages and stages and backgrounds, neighborhoods, all that. And from our group, I think we tried to word it in a way that pays homage to the police department and what they are doing very well. And then also making sure that we're ready to deal with anything that's going to come our way, you know, that as a community, and to be sensitive to all different types of people that want to live a happy and productive life in our village, both. So.
And that we're united in that. So even though there may be some issues that we may not necessarily see, I don't think there's anything that we come head to head on, but I do think that, you know, not to make you feel uncomfortable, Dave Bush, but I want to say you have done a miraculous job, and it's hard to face critique in this manner. And I think that even doing those challenges, the critique you faced, you should feel really good about. That is not that there's a lot of other critique that could happen. And if this is the most critique we have, and you've been more than generous to accept it and be part of it. And I do feel like despite anybody's differences on this committee, we all agree that we want to support the Ballston Spa Police. We appreciate what is happening and what is done. And we want to support the ways in which you need to move forward to feel like you have what you need to do that. I don't know. I'm not great with words, so sorry.
Lori, could I just speak for a second about the deadline business? I might have said the 23rd, but our meeting is actually the 22nd.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, it'll be to you by like the 15th at the latest, but probably the 12th.
Yeah. The 15th would be a week before the meeting.
Okay. So I
didn't see an absolute requirement in the book here about how long this had to be available to the public before they commented on it.
Okay.
But I would think a week would be minimum.
Okay. So let me take a look. I can dig. If it has to be earlier, we can make it happen.
No, I just really need to get it on the website by the 15th, yeah. I think.
Okay, absolutely. So, we'll do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you
all. I think you've all done a great job. I think this has been a really successful committee, and I really appreciate the effort.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything they want to say before we jump off?
I'm grateful to be part of this. So, and I think
it's been great.
Really do feel compelled to say how much I appreciate the village and folks. And I know that there are differences and political I know there are all these things, but I also think that we're all Village of Ballston Spa people. And I think that is a uniting front. And we're all looking, despite where we're coming from, we're all looking for the same comfort in our community. So.
Thank you, Lori. Larry, do we have to do any kind of public comment? Allow anybody to?
Well, I think we do, but we don't have any public. So
okay.
If you want for the record to say, at this point, we'll be happy to take public comment. Does anyone wish to speak? And no one wished to speak, so we'll close public comment.
Okay. So I'll be in touch, everybody. And the next time that everyone will have to kind of chime in is when the draft comes out, and then you can just, I'll keep you in the loop, and you can just email me, and then I'll just share anything I need to with everybody about any draft updates after it's kind of finalized. And then we'll keep rolling with all our deadlines for the village. And I'll, feel free to reach out at any time, and I'll be in touch within the next couple of days for sure.
Okay. But you're not anticipating another formal meeting?
Well, I want to look at this first. Like, I think maybe maybe what we could do, I don't know, what do people suggest? Should we meet after the draft is done and people have a chance to look at it before it goes to Larry? I mean, it's
I feel like one more would be helpful, but
yeah,
I also
okay.
want to acknowledge how much heavy lifting Lori AC has done here. And I think that's great. I think everybody can have it. It may not need a formal meeting. Maybe it's just an email. I don't know if the public needs to have a final response opportunity. I feel like clearly it's not been on their queue for participating, but I don't know. I would like to be open to public to have any kind of comment on our final report.
So you mean you want like to have another one of our, a meeting for us where public can comment before?
I feel like if we had a final report that we're going to submit to the village,
yeah,
one last opportunity for the public to see it and comment on it.
Okay.
Just to cross the T's and dot the I. Like, I don't, that's my 2 cents, but maybe we don't need that.
You know what, if we meet one more time, we may as well just open it up to public comment at that point. So I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere around March 10th or 11th. I feel like I have a meeting on the 10th for something, but what I will do is I'll reach back out to the group and we'll get together again. I'll set up another meeting that we can review the draft. Everyone will get it, and then we'll have a meeting just to talk about it.
It would feel good to me just to know that we have one more opportunity for the public to chime in on our final recommendations to the village.
Okay.
I'm not going to have your draft report.
Say it again.
The public is not going to have your draft report to comment on.
Is that, can we have the public, like, is that something we can say that we're going to share in the next meeting and then they can comment on it, or no?
Well, you can say, you can jump in, Larry, but I think what some groups were doing is letting people know in the community that the draft was up, like, you know, online or something, so they could look at it. It was like on the village website or whatever their local area.
Yeah, so that's what I want to get done by the 15th so that they can then comment at the board meeting on the 22nd. But if you don't finish the draft until the 12th, then there's not really an opportunity for you to disseminate it.
So maybe I'm sorry, that was my misunderstanding. So maybe we can have that final draft up and then they can comment it at the board meeting. I just wanted an opportunity for the public to see the draft and have a final comment. I would hate to put in a final like recommendation without the community having that last input.
Well, remember,
your recommendation comes to the board, and the board publishes it on the website and holds an official public hearing for people to comment on it to the board. And then the board has the opportunity to accept your report as written or to make amendments to it based on that public comment that we get at the meeting on the 22nd. Okay. And then we've got from then until the 1st to make any changes that the board wants to make before filing it with the state.
So I actually think, so that's fine. I then withdraw what I said. I did not quite understand that. I think Larry is completely right and I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure there was an opportunity for the public to see the final recommendation. So if that there's a mechanism already in place for that, never mind.
Okay, and we'll have a meeting, the people that are editing and writing a little bit more, I'll schedule a Zoom meeting for that group, you know, soon, like next week, probably, for sure. And then we'll, you know, and I'll be in touch because we're gonna have to parse out like responsibilities, but and Lori, you could attend that village meeting on the 22nd or 3rd.
I will, thank you. I appreciate that,
sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, I will as well, but.
And if you actually want to present the plan on behalf of the committee, if you want to speak, summarize the plan at the board meeting, you're certainly welcome to. I can put you on the agenda before we have the public hearing.
I think that would be great if Lori's comfortable with that, and I'd be more than happy to be there as a support and answer any questions in your support. I think that would be awesome. Okay. Sorry to throw you under the bus, Lori.
It's good, you know. Susanna did in the beginning. I probably would never have, sounds terrible, but I don't know that I would have volunteered to be the chairperson, and it's been like a fabulous
You're
experience.
doing wonderful. You've done amazing.
So yes, I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to do that. Oh. Okay, so I'll be in touch, everybody, and thank you. And this is good because we have it nailed down, and again, everyone can participate to the degree that they want to and can in the next week. So, and I'll clearly outline that when I reach out to you, okay?
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Right, sounds good.
Thank you so much, Lori. You've done amazing. And
thank you.
Dave Bush.
And thank you, everybody else.
Yes,
All
everybody.
right. Have a good night.
Hugely helpful. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.